Kai, how's it going? How you doing, man?
Good, thank you. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too. So, I guess we should start off by, well, you should start off by introducing yourself because I think a lot of people are going to know me. So, who are you? Tell me about you.
Um, so no, that's one of those awkward questions. I don't know where to start. I'm Kai. I'm a London-based roller skater, part of the skate community here in London.
Cool. Yeah. And we've known each other for years. We've known each other since.
Yes, since high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say since high school. I was probably like 14 when I met you, maybe 12.
Yeah, and I'm a couple
14.
of years older than you, I think, aren't I?
Yeah.
And I remember I was there when you jumped off a swing and broke your leg.
Was you really? Oh.
Yeah. I'm sure you were trying to show off to a girl at the time. Anyway, it's good to speak to you, man, and thank you for agreeing to be part of this discussion.
No problem, it's a pleasure.
So, as you know, and as people know, that the idea of this is to talk to Black people in the UK and in the States who are they're not everyday names, but they're doing extraordinary things. And the stuff that you do with the skate community, I think, is exceptional. So what we're going to do is we're going to come on to that in a little while. So first of all, tell me about you. What's your family background? Parents are from where?
My mum's English, and my dad's from a small island in the Caribbean called Grenada.
Cool, nice. And has your family shaped your views and the way that you see yourself as a Black person, or do you see yourself as a Black person?
To be honest, growing up where we grew up in West London is very diverse. We have people from all different cultures and backgrounds. But no, I do see myself as both white and Black. I am mixed race, and I'm proud of both.
Cool. Yeah, same. That's really interesting. And so, when we talk about the Black side of things, what is being Black to you? Are there things that you think Black people should all adhere to? So, for example, we both have very similar political leanings, whether it's to do with Black Lives Matter or anything else. So do you think Black people should all have the same way of thinking as us, that kind of thing?
That's a tough one, because everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and given people's backgrounds and upbringings and their own experiences, they're all entitled to have their own thoughts on certain things. I don't think it's right for people to dictate what to think, but it's all about discussions, having healthy conversations, and hopefully you can come to an agreement and without falling out. But with politics, it's quite hard, especially when race gets involved.
Yeah, completely. I mean, you don't do Twitter, but I look at Twitter every now and again, and honestly, it's so polarizing, and there's so much anger and hatred sometimes on both sides that it feels a bit difficult to follow. Yeah,
well, I'm on Facebook, and you just have to go through the comment section on that, and it's bad. But that's a problem with social media in general, really. People feel some sort of they can get away with saying things that they wouldn't really say if they was face to face with someone. They wouldn't dare dream of saying some of the things they think. But on social media, you can give yourself a kind of alias. You don't have to go by your real name or anything. So people feel they can just voice whatever.
Yeah, 100% agree. Okay, cool. So, as you know, we're doing this for Black History Month. So your particular talk is going to be released on one of the days in October. We're doing this now at the start of August when it's like 30 odd degrees and we're both sweating.
Yeah.
It's hot. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on Black History Month? Do you have any thoughts of it? Do you think it should be a celebration? Do you think it's too reductionist in its nature? What do you think about it?
See, Black History Month is something for me I've kind of gone up and down on, and I kind of sit on the fence with it. Where I can see positives from it, I also see some negatives. So like, it is nice to highlight and celebrate people in Black history and things that have been done over time. But also, like you said, putting it just for 1 month out of a year, I don't really like that. I don't appreciate that. Black history should be something that's celebrated all the time. Not that it needs to be shoved down people's throats or anything, but I don't think it needs to be put just for a month and then kind of forgotten about like a trend.
Yeah, no, I think that there are lots. I think there are a lot of people that think that way. I think for me, Black History Month can be important if we don't kind of reduce it down to thinking about, I don't know, like slavery to Martin Luther King to Stephen Lawrence to Black Lives Matter. That seems to be like the four things.
Yeah, and that's it. That's all I remember being taught in high school. Slavery, Martin Luther King. Slavery, Martin Luther King. Rosa Parks. Yeah,
exactly. So I think the way that I look at it is that actually Black History Month can be an important vehicle, because I think there are very few, and we spoke about this a few months ago, there are very few times and ways that we can celebrate good things that Black people are doing in this country. And I think it should be done all year round, but it isn't. And so if we can celebrate the stuff that you're doing, for example, the stuff that Dawn Butler's doing, the stuff that David Lammy's doing, and we can highlight that at a particular time, I think that's excellent. But I completely get where you're coming from. I completely get that. So do you think it's important? Do you think Black History Month is important? Do you think it's an important thing to have?
No, I don't think it's an important thing as such. Again, if you look at other communities, they don't have a month like dedicated to them in the year, and I don't see why it has to be Black History Month. And again, going back to high school and my experience of it, it was slavery and Martin Luther King, but there was Black history before that we weren't taught about. And I, to be honest, the education system, in my opinion, really does need a whole rethink and reshuffle.
In what way? What do you
mean? Again, we're talking about race here. I think education is the most important thing. Like, no one's born racist. It's something that is taught, and it needs to be dealt with at an early age. I don't know if you've seen, there was a video, an experiment of very young children probably in primary school, and they were sat down and they had a black doll and a white doll, and they was asked questions, and not influenced in any way, but they was asked, like, which one do you trust? Which one don't you trust? Which one is beautiful? Which one is ugly? And for most of the kids, unfortunately, they would put the white doll on a pedestal and the black doll they would not trust. And it's things like that, you know, when kids are young, they're given superheroes and heroes, just normal heroes that are white people. Or when they're watching films and cartoons, you know, they what's the word I'm looking for? They're idolized. They're idolized, like Jesus, white Jesus, the savior, and things like that. So no, it does start from education and young.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that the study you're referring to was first conducted in the 40s in the States. And it was really interesting because it led to calls for desegregation of schools. And then it's been repeated here a few times. But the scary thing is the results are often very, very similar. There's a similar study that's been done in social psychology, and it's titled "Don't Look Black in Anger." And they asked a bunch of white students to rate how aggressive they think a series of kind of typically black faces are and typically white faces are, and also ethnically neutral faces. And black faces, despite the emotions on the faces always being neutral, black faces were, in I think 85% of cases, they were argued to, or suggested to be more aggressive But even in the neutral faces, when people saw them as being darker skin in neutral ethnicity faces that people assumed were darker skin, still they were rated as more aggressive. And so I think
the whole
all of those
system.
Yeah, I think all of those things come back to exactly what you're saying. Is there's that lack of education early, and then there are these just sometimes conscious, sometimes unconscious biases that are continuously running through people's, not necessarily running through their minds, but influences their behaviors, right?
A lot of the time, subconsciously, just straight away.
Yeah, and you know, we need those things, we need those biases in order to just make sense of the world. But those things don't necessarily have to be based in race. So yeah, that's the psychology. Anyway, sorry. So do you think Black History Month should be extended to non-Black people, to not so, I don't know, Indian, Pakistani, Asian people?
Absolutely, it needs to be to everyone. It needs to be to everyone.
And so in what way? How does that work?
Well, we live in a society where we all mingle and socialize with each other and interact with each other through school, through business, everyday life. Again, in London, I interact with people on a weekly basis from all over the world. So it's important that those people from those communities have an understanding of what it's like for Black people, white people, Asian people, etc.
That's cool. That's a really interesting way to look at it, because a lot of people, particularly with Black Lives Matter, suggest that it should be focused just on Black people because it's Black people that have so many of those negative statistics that are associated just with being Black. But I get where you're coming from, because it increases that inclusivity, that harmony between ethnicities and culture. Yeah. Cool. Okay, cool. So let's talk about the UK skate scene, the skate community, the London skate community. Tell me about it. What does it look like? What do you guys do?
So I've been skating for 10 years, actually. 10 years last month it was. I originally went with my sister for her birthday, for a birthday party in King's Cross. There's a place called Bagley's. And at the time, she said to me, it was a Friday night, she's like, "Hi, do you want to go to a roller skate party with me?" And I was like, "Roller skating? Who does that?" You know? But she's like, "Oh, just come, it'll be fun." I wasn't doing nothing, so I went with her, and I had such a great time. At the time of my life, I was kind of growing out of the whole nightclub phase, you know, like all the drunk people. It just weren't for me. I was just growing out of it. Yeah. And I went to this roller disco, and it had all the benefits of the clubbing without any of the negatives. So there weren't any drunk people. There weren't people fighting. It was just people skating around, dancing, listening to music, having a good time. And then on top of that, it had the sporting kind of, I'm quite competitive. So I see someone doing something cool and I want to do it. So I'm practicing, and literally just within that first few hours that I was there, I noticed myself getting better. And I was like, yeah, I like this, I want to do it again. And over time, I started doing it more and more. Yeah, and just fell in love with it. It's a real community vibe. You can go there, you can make I've made some of the best friends that I'll be friends with for the rest of my life at skating. It's just a nice release. It's real therapeutic. Really, cool. Really good.
And so what does the skate scene and the skate community do for kind of, not necessarily for Black people, but for people in London? What does the skate community do? How do you support people?
So roller skating is really underground. Not many people know about it until you experience it. I've just shared how I kind of fell into it. So I've been running Fix8 Rollerdisco in Wembley for the last 5 years, 4 or 5 years, lose count now. And it's just, it started off as just a small kind of community project. There's nowhere for skaters to skate anymore, you know, like Bagley's closed down. There was another place in Vauxhall that closed down, and we didn't have any facilities. We have to drive like 2.5, 3 hours for the nearest actual roller rink. So me and a group of friends, we rented a hall every week, and we just invited some skaters down to come skate with us, help us pay the rent, and just have a good time. And it has really grown and developed over time. We get over 100 people every week. This is pre-COVID, I guess. We get over 100 people from the local community and beyond. We have people coming from other countries to come skate with us. Social media has really helped with that aspect. People see our videos online and want to come skate with us. But it is a very Black community that we have there.
Yeah, and so what's important about it? So we had the conversation not too long ago about some other stuff, and you were telling me about the skate community. You were telling me about how. Give me an example of the young guy that you. Yeah,
Mikkel.
Kind of mentored.
So again, we're in Wembley, and for those not familiar with the area, there's 2 estates local to us. There's St. Raphael's and the estate across the North Circular on Church Road. I forget the name of it, but during like the early 2000s and 90s, there was a lot of gang culture going on there, and fights and stabbings and whatnot. And when at Fix8, one of the fathers from Church Road visited us, and he really liked what we were doing there. And he spoke to me at the end of the night, and he said that he'd like to bring his son along with him. Now, what we do is an over 18s event because we have an alcohol license and whatnot. And his son at the time was 15. And he said, I really want to bond with my son. He's started hanging around with some bad people, and I just want to keep him away from that. And again, knowing what happens to our youth around the area, I wanted to help out. I saw this as sincerity in his dad's voice. So I told him to bring his son down. And his son, Mikkel, he's been part of our team he's 22 now, so he's been part of the team for a long time. And we've really seen him grow and develop into a really decent young man. And we kept him out of trouble. There's been incidences, and more than one, where he's been at skating and got a phone call from some of his friends. They got into a fight, or the police hassling them. But there was one time where he got a call where they got into a fight, and one of his friends was actually stabbed. And if he wasn't with us at skating, he would have been there with them, and don't know what could have happened. So I'm glad he's been with us, and we've been able to like lead him along a good path.
Yeah, and I guess that's not an isolated incident. I mean, that's one that you know of, but you must support.
There's been a few.
Yeah, and
but
that's
never at skating. Skating's always been a safe haven for everyone.
That's such a brilliant thing to do, and it's not something that I even knew was a thing until I follow you on
Facebook.
Facebook, yeah. So that's really cool. So have you gotten much support from the skate scene, like politically or from the local community?
Not really. It is, like I said, it was started from a group of friends. We'd all chip in, pay the rent. But then as it was getting bigger, we had to get security guards, again, because of the venue license, the bar license. Rent goes up, but we haven't got any support in that sense. We are looking into it though, because we do want to expand. We want to try and get our own venue. Because we're getting messages now about people wanting private parties, kids parties, corporate parties, and we only have the venue on Tuesday evenings. We can't afford the rent on the weekends. So we want to try and get our own venue where we can do more events and more family-oriented events as well.
That's cool. So what are you guys working on now? Where are you now? What are you working on now? You kind of just told me that you were looking at getting your own place and maybe kind of expanding it. But are you doing anything further to support the Black community with the skate scene? Are you doing any further stuff at the moment?
Yeah, so before I do removals now, but before I was doing that, I was doing youth work for 4 years, and we started doing a Friday night session in Stonebridge Park, and we had 30, 40 kids from the local area come in every week. And although they weren't really into the skating as much, it was more of a social thing for them. They did still put the skates on, have a good time, and they just enjoyed being around the music and around each other out of school hours.
Yeah.
And we want to do more of that, more of the community work.
That's cool. We'll ask you a couple of things like that afterwards. Okay, cool. So if we move on to talking about the kind of big thing at the moment, which is Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? What is it to you? Because I think it means different things to different people, but I think to different people it kind of means the same thing.
I support the message of Black Lives Matter. Some people misunderstand it and think, and their first response would be, yeah, but all lives matter. Of course they do, but Black Lives Matter. I'm not so clued up about the organization as such. I've heard some conflicting rumors and things going around. But for me, the message is Black Lives Matter, and where Black people are being killed on the street or profiled and treated unfairly, we just need equality. And Black people, it seems, aren't given that. So Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and we definitely look at this from the same kind of perspective. And for me, it feels like it's such an important message, because I don't think most people realize how disadvantaged just your skin color can make you. So, I mean, a couple of the most standout things is Black men are something like 7 or 8 times more likely to be sectioned under the Mental Health Act than white men. We know, we've heard about the police, but I mean, Black women, I think, are something like 5 times more likely to die during childbirth, and Black families are twice as likely to have cot death, like sudden infant death syndrome. In social care, Black kids are more likely to be victim of care proceedings that for the same thing as white kids. And it goes on. It's education, it's employment, it's everywhere. And the only common denominator among those is, first of all, skin color, and second of all, a lot of the time there's a lot of the Black community seems to have quite a low level of socioeconomic status, so there's a lot of poverty, right? And I think that's exactly all of it. So do you think it's just a fact? Do you think it's just do you think it's a thing that is gonna run out, like we saw in 2011, for example? It kind of that's quieting down since then. Do you think it's gonna run out, or what do you think is gonna happen?
Yeah, the last few weeks, social media has kind of changed the narrative, and they've moved on to different things. Obviously, most recently there was the explosion in Lebanon. But there's other things that go on that distract us from the Black Lives Matter movement. But it's more than just a phase. Like, it's Black Lives Matter every day, not just while the protests were going on. It's not just about George Floyd. It's much more than that. But it will come and go in people's priority lists, I guess. But it's every day. It's every day.
Yeah, completely. And so, what have you had much experience of kind of being stopped by the police and that kind of thing?
I haven't actually. Again, me and you know West London pretty well. I've been on the good side, the lucky side, I guess. I've been stopped a few times, but I've never really been hassled as such by the police. Nah.
Yeah, it's similar for me. I've been stopped a couple of times. Kind of feel like without reason, but actually the police treated me quite well. So it's kind of difficult when it does happen. You see it. For example, we saw Bianca Williams, the sprinter, and Dawn Butler being stopped her driver was stopped for virtually no reason.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that today, I think. Yeah.
Oh, did you? Yeah. I think it happened yesterday. Okay, cool. So we've said kind of I guess as an overarching thing, Black Lives Matter is just about equality. It's just about having the same chances as everybody else, right?
Yeah.
So what can we do to support that? How do we make that happen?
Again, that's a question above me. I wouldn't know where to start. There's no one answer. You know, there's no one thing. It's going to be a combination of many things. You know, like spoke about the police. That's one thing. But then we spoke about education. That's another. You know, and it goes into the workplace and the HR departments, in medical care and political. So like you mentioned, Dawn Butler. Dawn Butler's actually come to skating. She came along and she loved it. She really enjoyed it. But it's going to be a combination of so many factors, and within ourselves, within our own communities, and that's why doing things that I'm doing within the skate community, I'm really proud of it. That I'm just one part of taking things forward.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there are two sides of it, right? So, my academic research is all about mental health at work, and you know, while there's so much that you can ask of an organization to support your mental health, sometimes you have to take responsibility for yourself. And I think there's a bit of that within the Black community, in that we kind of need to support ourselves and our own behaviors. I think you mentioned education, and that's very important. One of the things we spoke about the other day was role models. So do you think kind of young Black people, mixed race people, have good role models to look up to?
We don't have enough.
Yeah.
We don't have enough. No.
So in what way?
I'll give you a story. So again, going back to my youth work time, I was doing it in the King's Cross area. So there was a lot of white children, Bengali children, and only a handful of Black children in my centre that I was working in. And we took the kids on a trip to a sports centre nearby. And there was a boy called Junior, and he was sitting at the side on his own for a while, and he looked really sad. And if you know Junior, he was always like the funny kid, you know, he liked to be making the jokes, and everyone liked him. But at that moment, he was kind of sitting at the side, kind of daydreaming, he just looked sad. So I asked him, like, what's bothering him? And his response really shocked me. He said, "I wish I was your color." And it kind of stopped me in my tracks. I was like, because I didn't know where that came from. And I was like, "What do you mean? Why'd you say that?" And he goes, "All the other kids, they pick on me because I'm Black, or I'm too dark." But he said, like, "Because I'm blick." It was his actual word. And I was like, "No, you're not. That's a stupid word." Like, who said that? I asked him. So, you know, just the kids. "I wish I was your color." I was like, "But why would you want to be my color?" He goes, "Because it's cool. I don't see my skin color as cool. This is just who I am. I didn't choose it. I can't change it. This is just who I am." And it took me a while to kind of think of a way to pick him up. And I asked him, like, what football team do you support? And he said, United. I said, "So who's your favourite player?" At the time, he says, "Oh, Pogba." So I'm like, "What colour's Pogba?" He goes, "Black." There you go. So then I started naming other Black celebrities in that he'd be aware of their name, you know. But it needs more people than just football players. You know? So yeah, role models are really important. And after I started naming a few, he kind of saw where I was going, and it cheered him up, made him cheered him up.
I think again, I completely agree on that, but I think that it's kind of more than, as you said, more than celebrities, more than footballers, more than actors, more than rappers. I think it's people like you. There's people there's people in the arts. There's people in academics. People in politics. I think there just needs to be more positive representation of all of the people to support that kind of role model thing. And I think that would be similar in the media as well. So I think a lot of the coverage of prominent black people, particularly politicians in the media, is quite negative. So again, Dawn Butler being the most recent example, but David Lammy and a more positive representation would help there as well. Do you think?
Yeah, I do.
Cool. So I guess the last question for me to ask of you is, what would you say, or what would you do to kind of young black people to try and support them and try to try to narrow that gap, try to improve that inequality on that inequality?
What I do? Yeah. My first black teacher was in high school, in year 7. You know, again, education and going back and having a positive role model like that. Start as early as possible. It's about having people in positions of power or leadership for young people to look up to and see in a positive light. That would be my first thought.
Cool. Yeah, I think you're right. Kai, I want to say thank you for your time.
Oh, no problem, man. It's been a pleasure.